Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. Thank you. This story tells Tom's adventure. In August, Becky's family came back from their vacation. Tom was very happy, and he didn't think about Injun Joe's treasure. Becky's adventure day was Saturday. Her mother said, "You can sleep at Susie Harper's house after your adventure." "Good," Becky said. Becky and her friends went on the river on a big boat. The boat went down the river and across it. Then it stopped. The children went out of the boat and played games near the river. In the afternoon, one boy asked, "Who wants to go to the big cave?" The children went to the cave. It was dark and cold there, but they played games. In the evening, they went back to the boat and went home. Sunday morning, Becky's mother and Aunt Polly talked to Mrs. Harper at church. Becky's mother asked, "Where's my Becky? Did she sleep at your house?" "No, she didn't," Mrs. Harper answered. "I didn't see her." Aunt Polly said, "My Tom didn't come home. Did he stay at your house?" "No, he didn't," Mrs. Harper answered. Then Aunt Polly and Becky's mother asked the children, "Did Tom and Becky come home? Did you see them on the boat?" The children answered, "No, we didn't see them, but it was dark." Then a boy said, "Maybe they're in the cave." 200 men looked for Tom and Becky in the cave. They looked for 3 days, but they didn't find them. People in the town were very sad. Huck didn't go on Becky's adventure. He stayed home and watched Injun Joe's house that night. At 11 o'clock, Injun Joe and his friend came out and walked down the street. There was a box in his friend's hands. Huck said quietly, "Maybe that's the treasure box." He went after the two men. They walked to Mrs. Douglas's house and stopped in her yard. Huck stayed behind some small trees. The men talked, and Huck listened to them. Injun Joe was angry. "I want to kill her," he said to his friend. "Mr. Douglas was bad to me. He's dead now, but I remember." "There are a lot of lights in the house. Maybe her friends are visiting," Injun Joe's friend said. "We can come back tomorrow." "No," Injun Joe said. "Let's wait now." Huck liked Mrs. Douglas because she was always good to him. He wanted to help her. He quietly walked away, and then he started to run to Mr. Jones's house. Mr. Jones opened the door. "What do you want?" he asked Huck. "Injun Joe and his friend are in Mrs. Douglas's yard," Huck said. "They want to kill her. Can you go there and help Mrs. Douglas?" "Yes, my sons and I can go there," Mr. Jones answered. "You can go home." In the morning, Huck went back to Mr. Jones's house. "How's Mrs. Douglas?" he asked. "She's okay," Mr. Jones answered. "The men went away because we arrived." "Good," Huck said, but he was afraid of Injun Joe. "Please don't say my name to Mrs. Douglas." Mr. Jones looked at him, and then he said, "You aren't well. Go and sleep in my bedroom." Later, Mrs. Douglas visited Mr. Jones. "You helped me yesterday night. Thank you," she said. "You're a good man." Mr. Jones said, "We didn't know about the men in your yard. A boy was there and he wanted to help you. He came here, but I can't say his name." Mr. Jones and Mrs. Douglas went to church. People there talked about Tom and Becky. Mr. Jones and his sons went to the cave with the men, but on Monday morning they went home. Huck was in bed and was very sick. The men went back to the cave, but Mrs. Douglas stayed with Huck. Saturday, Tom and Becky walked and played in the cave. Then they stopped near some water. "What time is it?" Becky asked. "I don't know," Tom said. "Let's go back now." The two children walked and walked, but they didn't find the door to the cave. Becky was afraid. She wanted to sit down and eat. "Maybe they're looking for us now," she said. "Here's some food," Tom said. "Eat this and wait here. I'm going to look for the door." Tom walked and walked, but he didn't find the cave door. Suddenly, there was a man near him. Tom was afraid, but he stayed quiet. He looked at the man. It was Injun Joe. Tom was very afraid and he made a noise. Injun Joe went away quickly. Tom went back to Becky, but he didn't talk to her about Injun Joe. They were in the cave for 3 days. Tuesday, Becky didn't want to walk. Again, Tom said, "Stay here. I'm going to look for the door." This time he went to a new place. There was light there. He went to the light. It came from a small door in the cave. Tom went out of the cave. Then he went back to Becky. "Come with me," he said. "We can go out of the cave now." Tom and Becky went out of the cave. They were very happy. They went to the river and waited there. Some men in a small boat came to them. Tom said, "We want to go home. Can you help us?" The men answered, "Yes, we can take you home." Tom and Becky went in the boat with the men. They arrived home very late Tuesday night, and people in the town were very happy. Tom talked all night about their adventure in the cave.